So my name is Nicole. I am the Education and Volunteer Coordinator for the New York Marine Rescue Center. We are New York State's primary response team for sick and injured seals, sea turtles, and small cetaceans. And today I'm going to be talking about marine pollution and the harmful effects that it has on marine mammals and sea turtles that are commonly seen in New York waters. But first, I just want to start by giving you guys a little bit of background about our organization. So the New York Marine Rescue Center is part of a network of organizations called the Greater Atlantic Regional Fisheries Office, also known as GARFO, which spans from Maine to Virginia. Now within this network, we work together with these other organizations to promote and provide marine conservation. One of the ways that we do that is we will share information on trends that we are seeing with these animals and identify any illnesses that we're seeing that are common or any population trends that we're seeing as well. Another way that we can work together is through our resources. Just last year, we were actually able to help out our partners at the New England Aquarium by taking in 15 of their cold-stunned sea turtles and caring for them here. The New York Marine Rescue Center is the only rescue and rehabilitation facility for seals and sea turtles in the state of New York. So the entire state is our coverage area. So from Orient and Montauk all the way into the city, Shelter Island, Staten Island, and even up the Hudson River. We are located on the east end of Long Island in Riverhead. We are located inside of the Long Island Aquarium. So we were actually built here in 1996, and they built the aquarium around us. So right here in this box is where our hospital is, right here. So one of the big things that the Rescue Center does is rescue stranded marine mammals and sea turtles. We are responsible, again, for responding to seals, sea turtles, and small cetaceans. Now, all of these animals are protected by either the Marine Mammal Protection Act or the Endangered Species Act, or both. Now, that means that it's actually illegal to get too close to them or harass them or even try to feed them or touch them. Anything like that that's altering their natural behavior is actually illegal. So cetaceans are whales, dolphins, and porpoises. And again, we are responsible for responding to dolphins, porpoises, and small-toothed whales. Now, unfortunately, there's no rehabilitation for these animals. However, we are able to do in-field responses for them. Now, for cetaceans, most of the time when they are stranding, it's due to underlying issues and illnesses. So a lot of times the most humane thing for us to do for them is to actually euthanize them. However, if it's an animal that just got stuck on the beach or is in a bad location, we are able to relocate them. So if, say, they stranded on the bay side, we can relocate them to the ocean side and release them there. Or we can do an immediate release where we are just helping them to get off of the beach and back into the water. Now, we are also responsible for the rescue and rehabilitation of seals. There are 5 different species of seals that we see in New York. The first is the harbor seal, which is this guy right over here. They're the most common seals that we see in our waters. And the second most common are the gray seals. they're a little bit larger than the harbor seals. These guys, the males will get to be about 10 feet and 880 pounds when they're full grown. These guys get to be about 5.5 to 6 feet, maybe 300 pounds when they're full grown. Then we have harp seals and hooded seals. Now these guys are more of Arctic species, so we don't generally tend to see them as often as the harbor seals and the gray seals. However, we are starting to see an increase in the harp seals that we're seeing in our waters. And then we can also see ringed seals as well. Now, ringed seals are a very rare sighting for us. They really are an Arctic species of seal, but we have seen them down here before. These seals travel down from the north during the fall and winter time and feed in our waters, and they'll start heading back up north again during the early to mid-spring time. We also have sea turtles in our waters as well. So sea turtles are marine reptiles that have evolved to live a completely aquatic life, with the exception of the females coming up to lay their eggs on the beach. They have dry, scaly skin that is impermeable to water and a tapered streamlined shell. Now they are different from your semi-aquatic turtles that you'll might see in your ponds and rivers. They are specifically adapted to living the life in water. So they have those powerful paddle-shaped fore flippers to help them move more easily through the water. Now, the 4 different species that we see in New York are the leatherback sea turtles. These are actually the largest turtles in the world. They get to be somewhere around 7 to 7.5 feet and 2,000 pounds when they're full grown. We also have Atlantic green sea turtles, which are these guys right here. They are the largest of the hard shell sea turtles, the leatherback sea turtle being considered a soft shell sea turtle because of the leathery skin that they have. So green sea turtles will get to be about 5 feet and 500 pounds when they're full grown. We also have loggerhead sea turtles, which are characterized by their really thick head and neck, which is where they get their name, the loggerhead sea turtle, from. You can also tell them from other sea turtles because they have a really pretty reddish-brown coloring to them. And then last but not least, down here on the bottom are the Kemp's Ridley sea turtles. Now these guys are the smallest of all of the sea turtles. They get to be about 2 to 2.5 feet and 80 to 110 pounds when they're full grown. Now even though they're the smallest, they still get to be a pretty good size. And aside from being the smallest, they are also the most critically endangered of all of the sea turtle species. There are 7 species of sea turtles worldwide, and all of them are either threatened or endangered. Now, once we have determined that an animal is in need of our help, we will bring it back to our hospital facility for treatment. So a lot of time we're not necessarily able to tell exactly what is going on with these animals just by looking at them. So just like you would when you go to the doctor, we do a full physical on them, which includes taking their measurements and their weights, listening to their heart and their lungs, looking at their eyes, their ears, their nose, and trying to determine what's going on with them. We'll also take a blood sample so that we can see what's going on with them internally as well. And we do all this to make sure that we are treating all of their ailments and injuries. We'll continue to do follow-up physicals as well to make sure that they're responding to the treatments that we're giving them. Now, in the photos here, we have an Atlantic green sea turtle who is getting their heart rate taken here with that ultrasound probe. This seal over here is getting tube fed because he hasn't been eating on his own just yet. And then this loggerhead sea turtle down at the bottom actually had swallowed a hook, so he's getting ready to undergo surgery to remove that hook. Now, inside of our hospital, we have several tanks to house the animals. Over here, we have 16 tanks that can hold either seals or sea turtles, depending on what is needed. We have 3 designated sea turtle tanks here, and then 1 larger tank here that can hold either seals or sea turtles. And this tank is actually able to be seen from our rescue center inside of the Long Island Aquarium. Now, our ultimate goal is always to release the animals that come into our facility. We want to make sure that we're getting as many animals back out there as possible. Now, we hold these releases year-round whenever the animals are ready. So the sea turtles are only able to be released during the summertime. Most of the time they're coming in due to cold stunning, which is hypothermia for sea turtles. So we have to make sure that that water is warm enough for them before we release them. However, the seals are able to be released whenever they are ready. Now, a lot of times we will hold public releases. Unfortunately, right now, due to the social distancing, we're not doing public releases, but we are sharing the releases of the animals on our social medias. If you are interested in finding out more about the releases in the future, please feel free to visit our website, which is www.nymarinerescue.org. You can sign up for the email alerts there, and we'll let you know when the next public releases will be. Now, if you look closely at the animals in these photos here, you'll see that they do have satellite tags on them. Now, this is part of our research efforts. So we are lucky enough to be able to satellite tag some of these animals. Unfortunately, due to the cost of these tags, which can be somewhere between $3,000 and $5,000 a piece, we are not able to satellite tag all of the animals. Last year, we were actually able to satellite tag 5 sea turtles with the support of Canon USA Inc. and Manhattanville College. And 2 of them are actually still actively being tracked, which is something that you can check out on our website as well. Now, that means that they've been tracking for over 200 days, which has given us some really great information. We get to see where they're going after they're released and some of their behaviors. So this seal here, this is a seal named Blondie, and you can see the satellite tag right there. And so this animal was released, and you can see the pattern of where she went after she was released. So it is normal for us to see seals heading north after we release them. They are generally tending to like to be in colder areas. So moving up to the northern regions where it's a little bit colder is a typical behavior for them. So now that you've gotten a little bit of background information about us, we are here to talk about marine pollution. So marine pollution is defined as the introduction by man, directly or indirectly, of substances or energy into the marine environment, resulting in harmful effects. Now, there are several different types of marine pollution. So one is sedimentation, where there is more sediments being deposited into the water. Now, you might think that the water already has sediments in it, so how could this be something that is negatively affecting the environment? Well, if you think about rivers and streams, an addition of sediments in that environment can cause the depth of those areas to change and the flow of the water to change. This can result in the inability for fish to spawn properly and migrate properly. Also, it can cause stagnant water where the flow is restricted and the water is stagnant, and now it's building up bacteria. So this can definitely negatively affect the environment. There's also agricultural runoff, herbicides, pesticides, fertilizers. Now, and this can be from farms to your own backyard if you use these types of things on your lawn. So these things can be highly toxic for the environment, and fertilizers can cause algal blooms, which ultimately affect the health of those marine ecosystems. Then there's energy pollution. So thermal energy pollution is measured by increasing the temperature of the water through industrial processes such as power plants and steam engines. And it can degrade the water quality. Now, light pollution is something that we know directly affects sea turtles or little hatchlings. Now, a lot of times hatchlings, the nests will hatch at night, and when they come up, these little hatchlings actually follow the light of the moon to tell them where the water is. So if people that are living on the beaches have their lights on, it can be very confusing for these turtles, and sometimes they actually end up going in the wrong direction. So there's actually policies in place where the people who are living in these houses actually have to turn their lights off at night due to nesting sea turtles. Now, noise pollution is another one that affects the environment, the marine environment, and the increased presence of loud or persistent sounds from ships and sonar devices, oil rigs, and even some natural sources like earthquakes can disrupt the migration, the communication, hunting, and reproduction patterns of many marine mammals, particularly aquatic mammals like whales and dolphins. Then we have sewage, and sewage originates primarily from domestic, commercial, and industrial sources. In many developed countries, these wastes typically are delivered either to on-site septic systems or centralized sewage treatment facilities. However, some countries either don't have the proper way to dispose of their sewage, or there's a malfunction in their sewage treatment. And in some cases, an excessive amount of rainfall can cause sewage to make its way to the ocean as well. Then you have marine debris. Now, marine debris is something that we see affecting the animals every year. This is the solid waste, such as cans and bottles and plastic bags that are not being properly disposed of and making its way into the water systems. And we have chemicals and radioactive waste. These can be pollutants such as PCBs, which are global pollutants of concern because these types of chemicals can be bioaccumulants, which are chemicals that will actually accumulate in animals and in their bodies and can be detrimental to their health. And then there's oil, which can be oil spills and urban-based runoff. So there are different sources for this marine pollution. So it can be either a point source, which is a single identifiable source of pollution. So in here you can see that there is a photo of a pipe that is directly putting pollutants into the water here. Non-point sources, also called diffuse pollution, come from a wide area and cannot be attributed to a single source. It can be caused by rainfall or melting snow. Anything that moves over the ground carries human-made pollutions and deposits them into the water source. So examples of this is runoff from farms and city streets. So just as a visual to see all the different ways that there is pollution getting into the water. So you have agricultural and urban runoff, industrial outfalls. You can have things coming in from the atmosphere, migration through the groundwater, and also through the sediments. So there's lots of different ways that this pollution is entering our waterways and degrading these communities. And now 20% of marine debris comes from ocean-based sources, whereas 80% is coming from land. So chemicals may be passed up through the food chain by biomagnification, which is organic chemicals that are moving up through the food chain and increasing in concentration. Now, marine mammals have been designated as good bioindicators, which are organisms or communities of organisms that react to pollution by changes in their life functions and accumulation of pollutants. Now, marine mammals are good bioindicators because of their blubber, and so these chemicals will just kind of accumulate in their blubber. An example of this is the methylmercury. So methylmercury is actually, it comes from mercury, and the organisms in the soil are actually what turn it into methylmercury. So it starts in the sediments and in the soil, and then it starts to get into the plants, which are then eaten by the smaller fish. And so you can see as this methylmercury moves up the food chain, the red dots start to get bigger and bigger. So it starts in the soil, then goes to the plants, then the plants are eaten by the smaller fish. And you say, this bigger fish eats all three of these small fish. And so that's when the dot starts to get bigger. And then these other animals, as well as humans, will eat these fish. And that's how it can affect our populations and make people sick. And so it's affecting the environment. Now, river otters here are also a good bioindicator. They're very sensitive to pollutants in the waters. The Peconic River here used to be a really good habitat for river otters. There used to be a good population of them here, and now we haven't seen river otters in the Peconic in the last 100 years, and now this past year was the first sighting in that 100 years of river otters starting to return to this area. So it's very exciting to know that the water health is increasing in this area. So there's also different chemicals that can be in our area as well, which affects the phytoplankton and photosynthetic organisms. So phytoplankton are photosynthetic organisms that live suspended just beneath the water surface, and they use the energy from sunlight and raw materials to make their own food through photosynthesis. Now, when there's an excess of that in the water, like the nitrogen and phosphorus that's being entered into the water here, then you have what's called phytoplankton blooms or algal blooms, which when there is a bloom like that, it will actually decrease the amount of sunlight that is able to get down to the plants that are in the water, causing these plants to die. They'll decay, and then it'll start to deplete the oxygen source in the water, causing low spawning and nursery grounds for the fish. So it's really easy for these chemicals to affect the whole habitat. Now, the number one most common debris found on beaches is cigarette filters. There are over 176 million filters thrown out each year. Now, it takes a single cigarette butt somewhere between 1 and 5 years to break down. So if you do the math, at any point in time in our environment, if it takes them 5 years to break down, you have over 881 million cigarette filters in the environment just being thrown away. This can definitely be a huge problem. You know, they make it into the waterways and animals think that they're food and they'll feed on them, and it's another way for chemicals to be introduced into the fish populations. And again, just like the methylmercury, those things will just continue to be an unhealthy characteristic in our waters. Then we have oil spills. So a couple of oil spills that a lot of people are familiar with are the Deepwater Horizon and the Exxon Valdez oil spills. Now, while the Exxon Valdez oil spill in Alaska was so detrimental to the environment, with 11 million gallons of oil spills, it wasn't anywhere near as bad as the Deepwater Horizon oil spill, which leaked 210 million gallons of oil into the Gulf of Mexico. The Gulf of Mexico is actually the main habitat for Kemp's-Ridley sea turtles, which are the turtles that are pictured here. Like I said before, these Kemp's-Ridley sea turtles are the most critically endangered of all the sea turtle species, and so this oil spill greatly affected their population. So there was a study done in this oil spill, a report from 2010, that there was a total number of 447 sea turtles that washed up deceased due to this oil spill. There were 157 that were able to be recovered and transported to facilities to rehabilitate them from the exposure. But to lose 447 of these sea turtles was extremely detrimental. Something else in the environment that affects sea turtles as well as marine mammals are plastics in the ocean as well, particularly plastic bags. A large food source for different sea turtles and marine mammals are jellyfish. So if you look here, this is a jellyfish, and this right here is a plastic bag. So looking very similar underwater, it's really easy for these animals to become confused and think that plastic bags are jellyfish and are a food source. And so they will consume them, and it will impact their digestive system. So this down here is actually plastic bagging that was found in the stomach of a whale. So it's affecting smaller animals as well as larger animals. Another thing that we see impacting animals every year is derelict or discarded fishing gear. It's also known as ghost gear. This is any discarded, lost, or abandoned fishing gear in the environment. So this gear continues to fish and trap animals, entangle, and potentially kill marine life. Aside from continuing to fish and entangle animals, it can also smother habitats at the bottom of the water as well, known as benthic habitats. Derelict fishing gear, such as nets or traps and pots, is one of the main types of debris impacting the marine environment today. So let's talk a little bit about the debris that we're seeing in New York. So the top left is a photo of a gray seal who was entangled in fishing line. The top right is an x-ray of a sea turtle who had swallowed a fishing hook. So it's actually sideways, so his head would be over here. And you can see the fishing hook right here. This is a sperm whale down here who has fishing line wrapped around his jaw. And then another gray seal here that is entangled in fishing line. Now this is something that we see every single year. So currently, right now, we actually have 4 animals in our hospital that have been affected by fishing line. So the first is garlic knot. Garlic knot is a gray seal. She's a female gray seal that was found in Amagansett, and she was entangled in fishing line. Now, if you look really close over here, you can see her wound. And so this wound actually wrapped around from her right front flipper all the way around the top of her back. So what happens with these animals is that they get entangled, and then they continue to grow, and that fishing line gets tighter and tighter around them. Now, she's making a great recovery. We're hoping to be able to release her soon, and so we're very excited about that. The next is cavatappi. Now, cavatappi is a loggerhead sea turtle. Now, this turtle came to us in November of 2019. It was found at Heather Hill State Park in Montauk. Now, this sea turtle was cold stunned, which, like I mentioned before, is like hypothermia for sea turtles. Was also struck by a boat. You can see those boat strike injuries right there on her shell. But was also entangled in fishing line. So this right front flipper over here was entangled in fishing line. Now, the sea turtle has made great progress. So this is a photo of when cavatappi first came into rehab. You can see that these injuries on her shell are healing very nicely. So be with us for a while. Shell injuries do take a long time to heal, but we're hopeful that we'll be able to release cavatappi as well. Now, the next animal is Pomodoro. Pomodoro is a male gray seal who, again, was entangled in fish netting and line. And you can see it right here was wrapped around his neck. causing that large laceration around the neck there. Again, this is something that we're seeing every year in an attempt to decrease the amount of things that we're seeing, cases of animals that we're seeing coming in entangled. We did start our beach cleanup program where we do beach cleanups once a month at 5 different locations. Now again, right now we are not doing any organized beach cleanups. However, if you would like to participate in your own beach cleanup while social distancing, we have added our data sheet to our website. So that website again is www.nymarinerescue.org. And under education and downloadable activities, you are able to download the data sheet and do your own beach cleanup. And definitely be sure to send it in to us and share the impact that you're making. And we have one more seal that was just brought into our facility the other day on the 20th. This is a harbor seal. And you can see the monofilament fishing line there that is wrapped around this seal, and the wound that goes all the way around his back as well as up across his chest as well. Now this animal, we are actually doing a poll on Facebook to name this harbor seal. So the choices are Scampi or Marsala. So if you want to have a vote, be sure to go on our Facebook page and cast your vote, whether you want it to be Scampi or Marsala. I just wanted to put this up to show how long it takes for these items to degrade in the environment. You know, newspaper and milk cartons, 3 weeks, 6 weeks, and 3 months. And then if you go all the way down to the bottom, one of the biggest problems, like I said, we're seeing is that fishing line. That fishing line takes over 600 years to degrade in the marine environment. And it never really fully goes away. It just breaks up into microplastics, which are also really detrimental to the environment as well. So it's really important, especially if you're a fisher, to make sure that any extra fishing line, that you're making sure to bring it home with you so that it's not affecting the marine environment long after it's been left there. So different ways that you can help is definitely to recycle. It takes 90% less energy to recycle aluminum cans than to make new ones. And, you know, reducing your use of these different single-use plastics such as plastic bags, plastic bottles, and using your reusable bags and bottles can really help make a difference in the environment. And now that you have been educated about the different types of marine pollution, you're informed, you can educate others. Definitely get involved in your community. If you have a local beach near you that you want to adopt and go there regularly to do a beach cleanup, any conservation efforts that you can do to help is greatly appreciated. Once we start doing our beach cleanups again, we would love to have you join us as well. So that is all that I have for you guys on marine pollution today. I apologize if you asked any questions during the lecture that I didn't answer. I actually lost my chat box, so I am going to pull it up right now. So I will also unmute the microphones for anyone that has any questions. All right, so you guys are officially unmuted. All right, so I have one question here of what are porpoises? So porpoises are very similar to dolphins. They're just much smaller. All right, well, if nobody has any additional questions, I really appreciate you guys joining me today. Like I said, definitely visit our social medias and our websites to see what else we have going on and different activities that you can participate in. So thank you again for joining me, and I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your Earth Week.
Thank you, Nikki. You stay safe, and we hope to see you soon. It's Tom and Kathy.
Thank you, you guys, too.
Okay. Bye-bye now. P.S. I really enjoy this. Thank you. Bye-bye.